The iPhone 17 may look familiar, but it's hiding upgrades that could make a real difference. From vapor chamber cooling to controversial price hikes, Apple's next move could shake up the entire iPhone range. And that's not just hyperbole, you're gonna want to know what's coming. We've got a lot to talk about with iPhone 17, but let's kick things off with a spicy upgrade that performance junkies are gonna love, and that Apple has never done before. According to leaker Mijimbu, the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max might finally be getting vapor chamber cooling. Yes, the tech that we've seen in gaming phones and Android flagships for years, like the Galaxy S25 Ultra, could finally arrive on the iPhone. Majimbu even posted what looks like a copper thermal plate, likely part of this new system. If you're wondering how vapor chambers work, here's a quick breakdown. It's a sealed metal enclosure with a bit of liquid inside. When your phone heats up, the liquid evaporates, spreads the heat across the chamber, and then cools down and condenses, repeating the process. The result is way better sustained performance and cooler temperatures for the upcoming A19 Pro chipset during gaming and heavy usage. Before we get too excited, a quick reality check is in order. Mijimbu's track record is a mixed bag, to be honest. They were right about the maxed out menu bar on iPadOS 26, but missed the mark with their claim about Stage Manager coming to USB-C iPhones, so take this with a grain of salt. Still, if this vapor chamber rumor is real, it would be the first time Apple's used one in the iPhone, and it could be one of those subtle under the hood upgrades that could make a big difference, but also could be one of those features Apple quietly leans on to justify a higher price tag, which is not so great. You know what would be great for me though? If you took a minute to click that subscribe button, so do it now. It's free and would bring you the latest about Apple right in your subscription box, so please consider it. Join the Surround Bite gang now. Turning to the front of the iPhone 17, analyst Jeff Pugh believes all models, not just the Pros, will be getting a smaller dynamic island, thanks to new Meta Lens technology. This allows Apple to shrink the Face ID module by integrating the transmitter and receiver components. That's potentially a nice visual refresh if it's accurate, but rumors about the dynamic island have been bouncing back and forth. Minchiko says the island's going to stay the same size, and that honestly seems more likely. Apple's probably saving any big redesigns for the iPhone 18, which is expected to incorporate a punch hole cutout and introduce under display Face ID. That said, a slightly smaller island this year isn't out of the question. Just like the iPhone 13 had a slightly smaller notch before Apple made the jump to the dynamic island on the 14 Pro, we may see a modest visual tweak. But if you're hoping for any big front-facing changes, they're likely happening with the iPhone 18, not the 17. The bigger visual differences this year will probably be on the back of the device, especially with the new camera modules. Now let's move on to another hot topic, promotion on non-Pro iPhones. This rumor has picked up steam recently. According to Weibo source Fixed Focus Digital, the iPhone 17 and 17 Air could both feature 120Hz panels, but without variable refresh rates. That means they'll be locked at 120Hz rather than dynamically adjusting based on the content displayed. That might be great for smoothness, but not so great for battery life. A fixed 120Hz refresh rate uses more power, especially for something like browsing or reading static content, and so personally, I'm skeptical. Apple has always prioritized battery efficiency, and using inferior LTPS panels for a fixed 120Hz experience seems like a step backwards. Plus, LTPO panels, which do support dynamic refresh rates, have been around for years. Here's the kicker though, Ross Young, one of the most credible display analysts on the planet, says the iPhone 17 and 17 are going to use LTPO panels. If that's the case, there's no reason Apple wouldn't bring full Pro Motion support to the base models, so I'm siding with Ross on this one. That being said, Apple might bring down Pro Motion while keeping the always-on display exclusive to the Pro models. LTPO tech technically does enable AOD, but Apple might restrict it via software to push more users towards the higher end models. But honestly, as someone who's turned off the always on display on my 14 Pro Max, I don't miss it, I can live without it, it drains battery, and if I want to check the time, I just glance on my Apple Watch. Here's where things get even more interesting and a little confusing. According to Jeff Pugh, Apple might split its chips across the range in a way we haven't seen before. The base iPhone 17 might get the A18 chipset, whilst the iPhone 17 gets the A19, and the Pros would move up to the A19 Pro. The A18 will be built on TSMC's second generation 3nm process called N3E, meanwhile the A19 and A19 Pro will be built on TSMC's newer N3P process, which offers better performance and efficiency. On paper, this could make sense if Apple wants to create clearer performance tiers, but here's the thing, if they're already producing a binned version of the A19 Pro for the Air, why not just give that to the base iPhone 17 as well? It feels unnecessarily complicated. Still, I wouldn't feel too disappointed if the base 17 sticks with the A18. Apple's chip upgrades from year to year have been pretty incremental lately, and the A18 will be still more than powerful enough for most users. That said, I do think Apple end up going with the A19 across the boards, just for simplicity and marketing consistency. Now let's talk display sizes. There's good news here because the base iPhone is getting larger. Ross Young says the iPhone 17 and 17 Pro will both come in at 6.27 inches, which Apple round up to 6.3 inches. That's the same display size as the iPhone 16 Pro, and it means the base and Pro phone will look almost identical from the front, even supporting the same ProMotion technology. That's fantastic news, but it also raises a question: how will Apple visually differentiate the base and Pro model now? One possibility is slightly thicker bezels on the base model, but let's hope that's not the case. The Pro Max will remain at 6.86 inches, rounded up to 6.9 inches, and the iPhone 17 will land at 6.55 inches, rounded to 6.6 inches. If you're wondering why the Air isn't the full 6.9 inches like the Pro Max, it's reportedly due to structural concerns. Apple was worried it might bend more easily with a thinner, lighter body. Let's get to pricing, because this is where things could get controversial. The base iPhone Pro has stayed at $999 for several years, but that streak may finally end. With the new 20% tariffs on Chinese imports in effect, Apple might be forced to raise prices, but they won't blame tariffs directly. Apple does not want to risk upsetting Trump or drawing attention to the tariffs, so instead they'll be framing the price increase as being driven by new features and design changes. That's the narrative they're likely going to push, because remember the Amazon story from April? When reports said Amazon might show tariff costs to shoppers directly, the White House called it a hostile act, and Amazon quickly scrapped the ideas, so basically, Apple doesn't want to be caught doing anything embarrassing like that. So what kind of price bumps are we talking about? Here's a rough worst case scenario. The iPhone 17 starts at $899, the 17s starts at $999, the 17 Pro starts at $1099, and the 17 Pro Max starts at $1299. Not massive jumps, but enough to be felt, especially with inflation already hitting people hard. Could Apple soften the blow with more base storage? Possibly. It'd be great to see 256 gigs as the new baseline, and maybe 512 gigs for the Pro models, but that is wishful thinking. It's also possible the base model stays at 128 gigs, with only the Air and Pro bumping up to 256 gigs. You may be wondering though, if tariffs are the issue, why not move production out of China altogether? Well, Apple is already shifting US-bound iPhone production to India. Tim Cook confirmed that most iPhones sold in the US between April and June will come from India. However, Pro and Pro Max models will still be primarily made in China because India's manufacturing capacity just isn't there yet, especially for the more complex models. To sum it up, we're looking at a vapor chamber cooling system, a potentially smaller dynamic island, ProMotion trickling down to non-pros, new screen sizes, a weird chip strategy, and looming price hikes. It's shaping up to be an interesting year for the iPhone. Compared to how incremental the iPhone 16 series was, the iPhone 17s will certainly bring more exciting changes, but I'm curious about how price increases will be received by consumers, especially since older models like an iPhone 15 Pro are dropping in value fast, and so going with an older refurbished iPhone has become even more enticing. Are these changes enough to get you excited though, or do you think Apple's just adding minor upgrades while raising prices? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.